Welcome to my Harris versus Trump summer predictions. So let's start. And there we go. So let's start off for the likely states that barely are likely states. So for Oregon, Washington, and Colorado. For Washington, it just barely drops below the 12% threshold, around like 11.5%. Oregon would be around I'd say 9 to 11%, while Colorado would drop to a decent extent. I think it wouldn't be. Would it be as bad as? No, I don't think it would be as bad as 2016, but I still see it dropping to 6 to 8%. It's just mostly because of the bad economy and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, for the other states I'm gonna talk about in just a second. For Illinois, for Illinois, even though Harris is, African American and she would do decent in some areas, she would have problems with other demographics which would hurt her quite a lot, and the turnout would just be quite minimal and would be quite bad compared to other elections for the Democrats. Which is why, in this, recession, which is going to look like it will last for a bit or a while, I see Illinois dropping, just like Washington, just below that 12% threshold, around 11.5%, which could be similar to states like Connecticut, which I do see it, and Connecticut dropping to 11.5%. While for New Jersey and Delaware, I do think that Delaware would go back to 2016 levels just around like 11.5%, but on the other hand, I think that New Jersey would not take a major hit. It's still going to be a almost solid state for Democrats by a likely margin. I think New Jersey is around 9 to 11% or 10 to 12%, I think, while Delaware is just below that 12% threshold. And yeah, so let's move on to the other likely states. This time for the Republicans. So for Texas and Florida, Texas in this scenario, some people could actually say, which is crazy to even think that, Texas could actually go to a safe margin if things are horrible. I do think that Trump is just not the right guy for like establishment like state like Texas. I do think because, Harris is somehow more unpopular than Biden, and I think that Texas would go to Donald Trump by 10 to 12%, which is why it's just really close to being a safe state for the Republican Party. I think, if, Donald Trump picks someone from Texas as his running mate, he probably could actually win the state by a safe margin. Yeah. Well, for Florida, I think that, we saw the trends with Latinos. And if it's Harris who is more left-wing than Biden, then, Florida could actually swing even more to the right from 2020. And I would not be surprised if we see something like 7% or even 8% for Donald Trump, which is even crazy to even think about. And this really just boils down to the economy and the recession, which I don't see improving. And lastly, I think for the last likely state, for the state of North Carolina, I think North Carolina would go back to and swing more than 2016. I think would be around 5 to 6% in my guess. I think that it could be worse, but I think that just Donald Trump wins this state through turnout and Democrats being unpopular. And yeah, that's it for the likely states. So as you can see, after the safe states and the likely states, Donald Trump has 235 while Harris has 191. And yeah, so let's go to the high lean states. I'm going to try to go in order. That's how I like to make my videos. So Arizona, which is crazy to think, in this scenario could actually have a decent chance of being a likely state by just above that 5% threshold, which is really due to the economy. I do think that this is a lot like 2008 era of recession. I don't think it's going to be as bad, but I do think that Arizona would swing to the right by a decent margin, even more than 2020 and even 2016 in this case, and I see Arizona being a 3 to 5% state for the GOP. And now for Wisconsin, one of the strongest states for Donald Trump in 2016, I see Donald Trump winning the state of Wisconsin by an even bigger margin than 2016, and he wins the state of Wisconsin by around 3 to 5%, which is really a big swing from 2016, which is why you're gonna see a lot of the states, just like we saw in 2020, many states having swings to the left from 4 to 8% on average, most states. we would see the same in most states in 2024, just the opposite way. And now for the next state. So this time for the Democrats, I think Virginia, it wouldn't flip. I don't think that would happen. I think Virginia would go back to similar margins to 2016. I think it would just be below that 5% threshold, and Harris would win the state of Virginia by around 3 to 5%. And yeah, let's move on to the, the kind of the lowish lean states. I like to make them like that. So for the state of Nevada, I think that this state would not be as red as some people think it would be. I think it'll be not as red as like 2004 Bush era. And I think it would vote to the left of Arizona, of course. And I do think that the economic recession will be a big problem for Democrats. And I do think that then the state could even swing more to the right. But for now, lean R. And now for the next states, this one is a tough one, but I think Georgia, which is crazy to think because we saw a lot of swings and really good swing for the Democrats in many of the counties and near the cities that really went left in 2020. I do think that this would be one of those states that would be harder for Trump. This is one of the states that really would only be a lean state if the economy is really trash, which I do expect it to be really trash in 2022, 2023, and 2024. And the only reason that I see it being a lean state for Donald Trump is just because of the economy and the gas prices. I just don't see it getting fixed soon, and you're probably going to see gas prices go up to 7, maybe 8, who knows. And I think that that's really about it for this state. So GOP went by 1 to 2%. And for the next state, for Pennsylvania, for the state of Pennsylvania, it is more interesting. In 2020, Joe Biden barely won it by 1.17%. I know that margin, I remember. And I do think that against Harris, who is even more unpopular than Joe Biden, who is one of the most unpopular presidents of the modern era, I do think that Harris would just be too much like Clinton and turnout wise. And this is really the worst case scenario for the Democrats. And I see Donald Trump winning the state of Pennsylvania. And I don't think as much as Wisconsin, but it would be quite close to that margin. I do think that Donald Trump wins the state of Pennsylvania, probably by 1 to 3%, but I would not be surprised if it's only like a 0.5 difference between Wisconsin and Pennsylvania. And lastly, for the 2nd district of Nebraska. And in 2020, it was a decent win for Joe Biden in the 2nd district of Nebraska, and I do think that it would go back to similar levels to 2016. And because of the low turnout and the economic recession, it would make it harder for the Democrats to do well in this state, and I should say district. There's many factors that could decide many things, but at the moment I see Donald Trump winning the 2nd district of Nebraska by around a margin of 1 to 3%, probably around 2% if I have to guess. And yeah, so that's why it's a lean margin for Donald Trump. And for one of the, not the closest states, but in this margin section. And let's go to Michigan. So Michigan was one of the strongest states for the purple states for Joe Biden. He won it by 2.8%. As I was saying, I think that Michigan not only goes back to 2016 levels of a GOP win, but even further to the right. And I see Donald Trump winning the state of Michigan barely by a lean margin. I do think that it will be a close call in this section. I think both Michigan and Georgia could easily drop down to third states, but because of the economy and everything going on, it's just looking awful for Democrats in many regards, which is why Michigan is a lean state barely. And now for the tilt states, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, for the tilt states. And now for the tilt states, let's start off for the high tilt states. So for the state of New Mexico, in 2020, it went to Joe Biden by 10.8%. Then in 2016, it went to Hillary by 8%. But for it to be close, it would have to be something like 2004 levels for the GOP to win here. And at the moment, even with the economic recession and everything going on in the country, I see Harris barely winning the state of New Mexico by a high tilt margin of 0.75%. And yeah, now let's move on to the medium to low tilt states. Last state, so let's start off for New Hampshire. It's another high tilt state in my opinion. I think New Hampshire would be quite similar to 2016 where it's a tilt state, kinda close, but in my opinion, I think 2024, if it's Harris versus Donald Trump, someone who has run 2 times previously against someone that really has not run a major campaign like Joe Biden before, who has a lot of experience, I think Donald Trump would actually win. New Hampshire, I see it being a high tilt state, or I should say like a medium high tilt state for Donald Trump in this election by around 0.5% to 0.75%. And yeah, let's move on to Maine at large. So, in 2020, it was a decent win for Joe Biden by 9%. And in 2016, it was a minor win by Hillary Clinton by around 2.9%. The bad economy will be decisive, and I would see Donald Trump winning this Maine at large by 8 tilt margin. One of the closest margins in this election, but he wins it here by 0.25% to 0.5%. And now, in my opinion, one of the closest states, if not the closest states, for Minnesota, which in 2020 was a decent win for Joe Biden by 7%. It would, not only would it be similar to 2016 where it was 1.5%, but I think that I just don't see things going well for Democrats. And in my opinion, if gas prices are off the roof, 7, 8, or 9%, recession is horrible, then, as I've said before, the only time I would see Minnesota going for a Republican is during a 2008 scenario or a major recession, which is why I see Donald Trump winning the state of Minnesota. Insane, but quite likely in a economic recession. He wins it here by 0.25%, if not less. And as you can see, Donald Trump wins it with 329 electoral votes against Harris with 209 electoral votes. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. Stay tuned for the next video.